Today we are going to talk about use cases, particularly how they drive feature development in the Agile method by specifying their acceptance criteria. With taxonomy, use cases are often no more than vague functional requirements, such as the taxonomy should improve content findability. I think it's important that taxonomy requirements be treated with more rigor, defining a sufficient level of detail to be able to accomplish a task. For example, use cases should explicitly show how a taxonomy would improve findability, such as by providing assisted navigation with flyout cascading lists. The place to start use case development is with identifying the business case. Agreement on the business goals of the project is critical to obtaining executive sponsorship for your taxonomy project. It also provides the high-level functional requirements that are the starting but not the ending point of use case development. The business case identifies how you will save money or make money and mitigate risk. For example, if you make content findable, on average, how many minutes will that save each employee every day? Or how much is avoiding an inappropriate information disclosure worth in organizational credibility? Or how much is it worth to add useful years to expensive industrial equipment through proper operation and maintenance according to the manufacturer's specification? To be able to define use cases, you need to understand the current state of the organization, particularly the state of the information resources and the perceptions its users have about the usability of these resources. How are these resources supposed to be used to complete daily tasks? How can you obtain this information? By gathering analytics, such as search query logs, quantitative information, and by asking end users, qualifying qualitative information. Collection of quantitative and qualitative information about content and user behavior and analysis of how users interact with content is the foundation for a successful taxonomy project. The best practice is to gather query logs to identify the most common terms used to search for content, and when possible, to group them by the intent of the search. The analysis of query logs involves identifying, grouping together, and labeling related terms such as synonyms, variations including common misspellings, and related phrases. Focus on the most frequently used terms, the top 100 to 1,000 terms, from a log that covers 12 months if possible. This should be done as part of a taxonomy development project and also ongoing to identify popular and emerging concepts and new relationships. This is an example of grouping queries by user intent from a do-it-yourself website. On this DIY website, a very common search term is toilet. But when we aggregate all the search strings which contain the term toilet together, we notice that there are several different intentions of those searches, including stating a problem, such as a clogged or running toilet, or seeking instructions on how to fix a problem, or maybe general information about how a toilet works, parts of a toilet, and so on. So you can see that there are a lot of contexts that we can learn from grouping and labeling queries based on similar search terms. Just like healthcare professionals, information professionals need you to tell them about their pain. One-on-one interviews or group workshops with business, information management, IT representatives, and sometimes customers are an efficient and effective way to gather information and documentation. We use a semi-structured method of interviewing to define the broad topics to be covered, but with flexibility to allow stakeholders to be more or less specific about areas that matter to them. We often ask users to walk through the tasks they do, like creating new information or searching for a known item. In this process, we aim to get stakeholders to tell us stories about what they do, how they do it, what works well, and what doesn't work so well. Stakeholder interviews can be a rich source for user stories. After conducting stakeholder interviews, we go through our notes to identify themes and then look for common themes that appear across the interviews. These themes can be characterized as stories as well, and those stories can sometimes be broken down further into keywords and search terms. Hold on to those stories. We will come back to them in a minute. First, we want to make the distinction between use cases and user stories. So, what exactly is a use case? According to usability.gov, which used to be the leading resource for user experience best practices and guidelines for the US government, a use case is a written description of how users will perform tasks on your website. It outlines from a user's point of view a system's behavior as it responds to a request. Each use case is represented as a sequence of simple steps, beginning with a user's goal and ending when that goal is fulfilled. Let's contrast this with a user story, which according to Wikipedia is an informal, natural language description of features of a software system, written from the perspective of an end user or user of a system. The purpose of the taxonomy use case is to help define its scope by thinking through both the strategic and practical goals of the taxonomy. A use case can be one or more sentences in the language of the user that describes what the user needs to do. Use cases can be helpful in later validating whether the taxonomy will address its intended purpose and making adjustments during the process to refocus the work. This table shows some examples of intranet and public website use cases and user stories. In the first example, the purpose of the taxonomy is to be able to organize and find content by business function, such as safety, by content type, such as policies and procedures, by geographic area, such as by state, and so on. A use case would be to create a safety policies procedures website for facilities organized by state. But a user story is much more specific. Here's an example. As a safety manager, I need to find all safety policies and procedures related to facilities located in Ohio to verify that we comply with them. So where does this concept of a user story come from, and how does it relate to taxonomy development? User stories are a key component of Agile project management. Many of us have experienced Agile when participating in an IT project team and may have used one of several popular project management tools, such as Atlassian's Jira or Microsoft's Azure DevOps. Agile project management makes use of use cases and user stories that are at various levels of granularity. Use cases are called features and are defined as an overall function of a product that allows users to do something. Really big user stories are called epics. Epics are defined as user stories that can't be delivered in one project iteration, usually a 3-month or 90-day period. Finally, user stories are defined as short requirements or requests written from the perspective of an end user, what somebody wants to accomplish and why. This is a simple template for writing a user story. Who, what, and why, as I want to, so that. User stories are short requirements or requests written from the perspective of an end user. Here are some examples of user stories written using this template. As a customer, I want to know how to return merchandise purchased online so that I can receive a refund. Who, as a contractor, what, I want to know how to submit an invoice using the vendor website. Why, so that I can get paid. Who, as the parent of a sick child, what, I need to get care as quickly as possible. Why, so that my child is able to return to daycare. Who, as the designer of an urgent care triage system, what, I need to determine the priority of doctor visits to provide the most efficient and effective care. Why, so that the quality of care is rated as highly as possible. Who, as the maintenance technician, what, I want to identify with certainty the correct operations and maintenance manual for a piece of equipment. Why, so that I can maintain it. Who, as the records manager, I want to identify when a document is no longer required for operations so that why, I can be appropriately archived. It can be appropriately archived or destroyed. Recently, I've been working with large public infrastructure organizations on taxonomies to support document management. Here are some of the features these projects will enable, the overall function that users need to be able to do. So, for example, follow a procedure for folder and file naming, use metadata instead of file naming to name a folder or file, and so on. And here are some user stories from the Central Arizona project, Taxonomy project. Who, as a consumer, what? I need to have a reliable potable water supply. Why? So that I can live in Phoenix. Who, as the superintendent of the Hasayampa pumping plant, what? I want to ensure sufficient pumping capacity is available when one or more pumps are offline due to routine or unplanned maintenance. Why? So that the water operations are not disrupted. Who, as a maintenance technician, what? I need to find the maintenance and operations manual for the Hasayampa pumping plant, unit number 1, so that why? I can inspect or test all pumping plant units and components and perform the routine maintenance and the routine tests. Okay, so use this template to write your user story now. Who, what, why? As a I want to, so that. Thank you very much.